Recording. Okay, so welcome everyone to the first PyGMT community call of 2023. So my name is Weiji. I'm one of the maintainers here, and yeah, we're just going to talk about a few agenda items today. So the first one on the top of the list is PyGMT v0.9, which we're hoping to release by the end of this month. So we're going to discuss about who's going to be handling that and what needs to be done before the end of the month to get that release out. We'll also talk about other things like the PyGMT paper, which we're hoping to write up hopefully sometime this year. Dong also reminded me about making a Mastodon account for PyGMT, which we can also discuss later. And there's also room, if there's time, we can also go into other things like whether we want to host any workshops this year or other things that people might be interested in. But yeah, so does anyone want to introduce themselves? I think we know everyone here. I think Jinghui, do you want to introduce yourself? Because we can't hear. Do you have your mic connected? We can't hear you.
Hello. Hello everyone. I am Jinghui Tong, and you can call me Tong simply. And this year I started to join the PyGMT maintenance, and I just made the wedge in AGU last year, and I hope I join a PyGMT maintenance just want to help PyGMT can be more good and everyone can simply use PyGMT more well. And it is my first time to attend this meeting and see all of the maintainer. So I'm nervous now. hope everyone can give, if I have some question, everyone can give me some suggestion from me. Thanks everyone.
Hi Tong, it's great to meet you. I've been super excited to see all your activity on GitHub. I'm Max. I previously was involved a lot with PyGMT, but my activity's been really limited lately, but I'm hoping to change that moving forward. And really great to see you all on Zoom again.
Oh.
Okay, does anyone else want to introduce themselves, or we can move on? I guess, Yvonne, is this your first meeting, or no, you've been to?
It's my first PyGMT community meeting, but I've participated in a GMT meeting, I think, in August last year, and in this meeting at EGU last year, I think. And after this, I started to contribute a bit more. Yes, but it's my first community meeting with PyGMT. Yes, and I'm a PhD student at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and I use shear wave splitting measurements, meaning I work in the field of seismology to understand the Earth's mantle in the area of Central Europe, to say this like this. Yeah, and I prefer to work with geospatial data and to visualize this kind of data. Yeah, and I'm really thankful for the support and help learning this working on GitHub, and it's a really friendly environment to work on. And I hope I will find still time to contribute in future.
No, it's great. Like I started PyGMT during my PhD as well. So it's always good to see like a new generation of like postgraduate master.
Yeah, I think the big advantage simply that you have it in Python, because other things are in Python, and Python is better than MATLAB because you don't have the license problem later. And it's easier to exchange the code because it's easier to read and people can easier step in. GMT needs some time to learn, and the code is difficult to read if you're new to it. But the visualization are amazing, which GMT produces.
Okay, cool. Who else? Klaus, I guess you've been.
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
My name is Klaus Peter. I'm a postgraduate researcher, senior lecturer at two universities in Münster in Germany and in Hanover in Germany. And I do have a lot of consultancy to do, and several customers, for example, using GMT and several different languages from Fortran C, embedding GMT and other products and libraries, and using that on high-performance computing systems. So with several thousand nodes and producing online videos and animations and so on. So that's quite a task. So mostly I'm using GMT and so doing my customers, but I'm also experimenting with PyGMT and Julia and other derivatives. So it's always quite interesting to see how far and how new things are getting implemented in order to do some support for my colleagues and students. Okay.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know GMT could be tied to Fortran as well. That sounds like.
Yes, they can do that with system calls and with parallelization. So it's quite possible to implement the library calls. So it's quite interesting to see when it's running on more than several hundred nodes. It's quite interesting, but they're producing videos for mapping, for example, oceanography measurements, and they're looking into the live video streams or into the photos or into the frames which are generated, and seeing if they have to do some different parameterization, and if it's going well, then they say, yes, now we can run that on thousands of nodes for 2 or 3 days. So it's possible to do that. So they're doing that for about 10 years, even before the movie module was implemented. They also integrated that in a comparable way.
Oh, that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Okay, well, Will's probably like busy or something. Oh.
Hey, sorry, I'm actually, we just came back, so I'm pulling up on my laptop, but kind of, do you want me to introduce myself still before this?
I was gonna say we could let Max go and then you can jump on your laptop.
Sounds good. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, well, I said hi, but I guess for a more formal introduction, I'm currently open source lead at a nonprofit called Carbon Plan, and our work includes building open data and tools for to try to increase transparency and scientific rigor in climate solutions, and part of that involves contributing to the open source scientific software ecosystem. But most of my work on PyGMT actually falls into things that I find fun to do in my spare time, which is part of the reason why I haven't been too involved, because I haven't had that much spare time. But hopefully that will change moving forward.
Awesome. Okay, where's for jumping off? I can give a brief introduction for myself. So I'm Weiji. I used to be a postdoc last year, but I recently moved jobs, changed jobs to a remote company called Development Seed, which is working with geospatial data. They're pretty big on open source as well, which is something I'm quite passionate about. And I've been also, it's a good chance for me this year to work a lot more on open source stuff, including PyGMT. So I think Dong has been like implementing quite a few things. I see like Yvonne's been doing a lot of making a lot of changes to the documentation. So it's great to see all that activity happening still. And I'm sure hopefully like more people can start to use PyGMT as well going forward. Okay, Will's back. Hey, just on time.
I am. Hi everyone, I'm Will. I've been contributing to PyGMT for about 2 years. I was an undergrad and graduated in 2012 as a geology major, and I found GMT. And I was unemployed a couple years ago when I just moved to the UK and was kind of looked up GMT and wondered if something was in Python, and then I found this on GitHub, and the rest is history. But I now live in New Jersey. My wife is active duty Air Force. I'm a defense contractor with Lockheed Martin, so this is very much something I do on the side. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks everyone for your introductions. So let's jump into the agenda. PyGMT v0.9. Cool. So who wants to volunteer to be a release manager? So what a release manager does is they'll help to sort of organize the release in terms of like making sure, just getting a list of priority pull requests to do before the release is done. And we do have like a checklist which you can refer to on how to do the release. And I think everyone here, I think at least four of us have done the release before, so we kind of know what things are like. We kind of like to rotate things, but so that not everyone does the release every time. But yeah, any volunteers?
If we did like the last day in March, I could commit time to it that week, but likely not much before March 23rd.
Okay. Was there a reason we set March 23rd?
Oh no, I'm just saying like I think mid-March came up at some point. I
can't quite remember why.
Oh, end of this month. So maybe March 31st would work fine.
March 31st. Okay. Unless someone else wants to take.
Yeah, if anyone who hasn't done it wants to step in, that's even better. We love to get more people experience with it.
I know Yvonne did the last one.
I did the last one, and I'm in principle open, but if it is as big as last one, I feel I will definitely need support. But I think it's not as big as the last one, this release. And probably we have to do it close to a weekend, because I think in between of a week, it's nearly impossible for me to work over midnight and to finish things. To do workload at the moment.
Yeah, it would be, what day is 31st?
Because now we have, I think, 24 as the date. 24 of March. And when looking at the list of issues and pull requests assigned to this millstone, there's a lot I think we won't finish.
That pretty much always happens.
No, we'll move a lot to the next release.
I think there's a lot we can shift to the over next release.
Yes, that's probably like more than half of that would push to the next one. Okay, so I'll put down Max for now. And tentatively 31st. So 31st is
Yeah, so that's a Friday. So if it needed to be on a Sunday, as has happened in the past, then it
okay. It
would have to
should
be
okay.
April 2nd.
Tentatively. Okay, and well, like everyone is gonna help out. Like you won't be doing this alone. But if you start, if you start like the release issue, and then we can all like help out with different bullet points.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Are there any? So still on the release, are there any features or things we definitely want to do by then? Or we're just discussing the release issue?
Yeah, your contextual method function thing should be finished. I think Dong mentioned this. Would be nice to.
Oh yeah, the fic.tile map.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get that finished.
Everybody's waiting.
Okay. It's just the projections need to.
Yeah, it's nice because you don't have this in GMT, and this is something where people probably don't use GMT anymore because you cannot have this background maps. And always adding every river and every city manually takes time.
Yeah, I did have. I guess since we're on this, would people prefer to have the base map in like a lat long projection, or just keep it at the native the Mercator projection? Like what are people's thoughts?
So it is currently in the lat long projection, is what you're saying, versus changing it to something in Mercator?
No, currently it's in Mercator because most tile maps are served as in the EPSG 3857, so the web Mercator projection.
Okay.
But I think Dong has been kind of like nudging me to use lat long, but that would involve like a reprojection, which could distort some of the pixels. So yeah, we could always like go for one and then decide to change the default later. But yeah, what are people's thoughts on that? I should put the issue somewhere in the chat.
So in native GMT, it's possible to plot a projected grid as if it's basically treating it as Cartesian because it's already been projected, and then overlay a lat long grid that gets projected through GMT. So does that work well with your figure.tile map already? What is the benefit of serving it as lat long and then having GMT do the projection to some appropriate coordinate system for rendering?
Yeah, so it does work with the web Mercator. I guess one thing I should note is for fig.tile map, typically people would pass in a region, which is like a lat long region. But the output from contextually, which tile map is wrapping around, is web Mercator by default. So like you set like a lat long region, but end up getting like a 3857 web map output, which so like the x and y axes, you see, it wouldn't be like in lat long. It would be in like a few 100,000s coordinates. which might maybe to a user that doesn't make sense, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'll play around with it. I don't have a
I think
strong opinion without
I'll
having tested the pull request.
Yeah, I'll have a think about it. Still have 2 weeks. Get that. Yeah, let's move on. Or is there other things people want to discuss about?
Maybe what we are doing with this ResearchGate thing, because we won't have this project thing to announce it on ResearchGate. Do we want to try to upload the Zenodo thing as a single item, or how we want to do this? Or do we simply skip ResearchGate for this time? But I feel it's actually great, or it's good for sharing it. Because they remove this project thing at the end of the month.
That's a good question. I haven't looked into that too much. So you're saying we can upload a Zenodo?
I think it works. There are people doing this. I don't know how much it is done, but there are people doing this. And as Michael wrote on the Slack channel, they plan to do something similar or something instead of, but there was no specification on this until now, or I did not find something that they stated in more detail what they plan.
Yes, and they didn't say if they have some roadmap or something, so it's open when it will be getting in practice. So may take 1 month or 5 months, so we don't know.
I guess we can take let's take a quick look. We could even start like a GitHub issue on that if needed. And then if it's not easy, we could like skip it for just this release. And then next time we can see if it's still there. How does that sound?
Yeah, maybe we should, rather than tracking in Slack, just open an issue. And I think maybe an intermediate step would be to have at least someone download the project's data so we have a record of what's been posted. It says that it'll be deleted entirely. That might be useful if they end up introducing a new alternative to projects. We could
re-upload it or something. Okay.
Yeah, or something like that.
Okay. What was the deadline for that?
March 31.
Okay. Open issue and GitHub. That one. Okay. So anything else? No. I guess we can jump ahead before we discuss the paper, since we're on the topic of social media accounts. Mastodon. So for those of you who don't know what Mastodon is, if you've been following the Twitter drama recently, well, Mastodon actually has been around for a long time, but because of the recent Twitter drama, a lot of people have started using this other social media platform called Mastodon. And we're thinking whether to have an account for PyGMT or maybe just GMT in general for that. And I think Eric Fielding mentioned on the forum last year that he would be interested to if GMT or PyGMT had like an account for that. this would involve. I think we were kind of stuck on what email to use and how we're going to share accounts to handle this. Because with Twitter, there was a way to set up things so that people could log in with their own username to post things. But I don't think there's something like that for Mastodon yet. But yeah. Any thoughts on that?
I know I'm not the biggest social media user, and I haven't really been on Twitter, but does our GMT or PyGMT account get much traction? I guess. I mean, I think it's a good idea to get away from Twitter and go to something like Mastodon. But I already feel if we have minimal exposure on something like Twitter, will it just be kind of a lot of? I'm not sure how many followers or how much extra exposure we'd get from Mastodon.
Yeah, from what I don't know what like standards are for Twitter engagement, but I always thought that there were quite a few people who like, or there was evidence from like views and retweets that there is pretty good engagement for getting news out through the Twitter channel. I don't know what, I haven't ever experienced Mastodon, so I don't know how that would translate.
I mean, I don't think it hurt if we're planning to just maintain a Twitter channel as well. I assume that would be pretty easy to just put the same product on both of them. But I understand there's an issue with who would control the account.
Yes, and it's like I'm happy to set up a Mastodon account. It's just I guess if it would be nice if we can not like use my email, but like a generic mapping to email instead. So yeah, I think there were some discussions on whether to use. I think Gmail wasn't so great for sharing emails because of the two-factor authentication or something like that.
Yeah, they really have it set up so it's quite hard to share email addresses, or in Google Groups seems slightly better, but still not great. So I don't think it's a good solution. It could be possible to like we tried to set it up for essentially forwarding from one email address that one person would have access to. And that is really difficult, and the system is designed to discourage that. It could be possible to just share the password, but that is also a little bit hard through Gmail just because of how they tie the one account to other accounts and phone numbers. So it would, I think, eventually lead to similar problems.
Okay, so we need not Gmail, essentially, but something else.
We just have, even if it is a Gmail account or someone's individual, when so as long as they're not trying to do things for the power or change any functions, so they'll just log in, even if it's sharing the actual like Mastodon login information.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, Will.
Sorry, I'm on cellular. Wouldn't it maybe still be possible, even if we are using something like a Gmail account as the username, to still share a password for the actual Mastodon login? It just, as long as the person who is logging in isn't trying to do things like password recovery or access the email account in any way.
I think that's similar to what Federico did for the GMT Instagram. I think as long as the person who signs up for it is comfortable with that situation, it could be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's not like we're logging in every day to post a tweet about PyGMT. So so maybe it should, yeah, maybe we're just overthinking this and we could just use Gmail. And like, yeah, we're not like super active on it. It's just every once in a while, like when there's a new release or a conference or something. Okay, let me try and set that up then. Cool. Next, let's jump. Should we discuss the paper a little bit? Who's still in academia? Yvonne?
Yeah, I'm still in academia. True. Yeah, actually, I contributed not at all. I have to apologize. Simply no time. It's difficult. But I also was not completely sure, should we simply write if we have time or if we think about something, because there is already some text, but there are also some questions. So not sure. And there was also not a clear deadline, except some time in summer, June, July. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Max probably has written more papers than me. So you know what, writing papers is like
It's boring.
Yeah, I have written quite a few. The model that I have usually followed though is that one person writes the vast majority of the paper and other people chip in with smaller sections or feedback, which is like, this is a kind of a unique situation because it's so collaborative and also everyone has a kind of limited amount of time or even incentives to devote towards the paper writing. If we were to do a more collaborative thing, one option would be to have like a scheduled collaborative writing time where people could, like, we could split out tasks and people could work on it live and have it be like a very small writing session. Or just like let people chip in wherever they think is helpful at any given time. I don't think that would be a big problem.
Yeah, I think like splitting out the tasks does sound good. Like people could focus on maybe if we like discuss like the general structure we want, and then we can like split out tasks. Someone focus on, I don't know what the structure is like, the methods section. There's no methods. Whatever sections we have, like section A, section B, and then people could focus on that. Or maybe someone wants to just produce the figures and not do any writing at all. That could be like an option as well.
The sections will depend pretty strongly on what journal we're targeting. Was that decided, or is that still up in there?
I thought downtown was. Didn't we agree on the G tree? What is it? Geochemistry.
G-cubed?
Yeah,
G-cubed.
I think we had G-cubed finally because it's GMT is also published there, and as I understood it, there is funding from Paul for this paper. This within this proposal. I think this was on GitHub somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we just need to write. Yeah, basically find the time to write. Yvonne, do you want to? I guess you're you're the one with the most stake on this. or Tong, I know you've. Do you want to help out with this as well? I know you're still new to this, but if you want your name on the paper. Since if I don't expect this to be finished in like a few months, to be honest.
I will see, maybe over Easter there are some holidays we can have a bit more, because I'm writing also my third paper, and this should be finished mid of April would be good.
Okay.
To have the third paper in the third year, it would be amazing.
I think Dong Dong will, if he's listening to this, he'll probably be doing interested in writing this up as well. So we could
yeah, we have already a basic structure. I think there is already some introduction. Then we have philosophy and design, integration with the data ecosystem. Then there is an example section. Should we simply generate basic examples to show the basic idea how this works, or also how we can reproduce the GMT figures that people currently using GMT also see that going to PyGMT does not limit them, that they can get the same output. And then there's the community section, which would be interesting, that we also look that people come up and step up and contribute to the project, because plans change and people do other things or have limited time to contribute. So it would be good to have new contributors over time. And then there is further development, meaning which models of GMT you probably want to include in PyGMT directly, because in general you can use everything, but it's not straightforward. Yeah, that's so far.
okay.
So is there any kind of guidance for, like, I mean, I know it can vary paper to paper, but as far as actual like length of these sections, because kind of looking it over, I know I've written, a decent chunk of the text we have already, and I've never participated in writing a paper before. So I'm not sure how kind of on the mark I am versus I'm just spouting knowledge that isn't actually useful. So as far as what we're looking for in the different sections, like, I guess, is there a guide for about how much, like how long are we expecting this paper to ultimately be as far as word count and like any given sections, like roughly what do we expect for length?
Yeah, most journals at least have a expected like length limit, and then some mandatory sections, but those are like going to be included like an abstract. Others are more regimented in how they expect papers to be organized, and I can't remember off of the top of my head what the guidelines are for G-cubed, but oftentimes what can be helpful is to actually just copy those into the top of the working doc so people have that available to them. So I could find that information for you.
Dong Dong started already doing this, like how long the abstract should be, how long the keywords should be, something like this, I think would be good. On what I find always, it's easier if you first write some bullet points, what you want in this section, and then formulate the whole text. Then I feel it's easier to write it.
Okay, so then as far as how we want to expand the existing sections, I mean, I think kind of what Max was harping on, that it's good to have a collaborative writing session if we want to be cooperatively doing this. But as far as the sections we haven't touched at all, the PyData ecosystem and examples, are we looking for actual code in there? Are we looking for kind of more general, the capabilities of this program?
I think definitely some code examples would be good to show, just to kind of show people like what the syntax looks like.
Now, is that only appropriate under the example section, or would we also want to do that in the integration with PyData ecosystem section?
I would also do it in the ecosystem section, that we somehow show a data frame, how it can be used. I think pandas would be fine, or if we want to do it more complicated, we can also use GeoPandas. But I feel this would be important, because I feel this is a big advantage compared to normal GMT. because you get more flexible regarding input formats. And yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to create some examples that are going to be very similar to what we already have in the examples on the website. I just wanted to make sure that that's what we're going for. As far as it's, I know it's not a showcase. It's trying to just it's trying to show the basic capabilities of the software, but I didn't want to spout off essentially copy and paste what I assume would be from the website and have that be what we are looking for.
Yeah, I think it's as long as you put something, someone's gonna have an opinion on it, and we can always change it if needed.
I think it's fine to start with the gallery examples. I think they are not too difficult, but they point out one or two features clearly, and this would help people to get a first idea how the package works, how they can use it, and if they want to polish their figures, then they of course have to go to the documentation and look up the details. I think this is then too complicated to show up in a paper, because there I think we should point out the main idea. And I think we should put it somehow in this part of going from GMT to PyGMT, and then the advantages of using the stuff Python provides you, which you don't have directly in GMT, as it's now.
Yeah, I think there's a, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ivan.
No, you can, I'm more or less finished.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think there's going to be a delicate balance of trying to write for like a readership who's coming from a background of having used GMT and geophysics, and those who have are coming more from the Python world and are interested in something that can do nice maps in Python. And so well, we might just have separate sections for each of those. But I think the way that you might write it for someone who's already using GMT and you're trying to convince into using the Python version and extending with the other scientific Python libraries would be very different from someone who has never used GMT before. And ideally, we'll convince both groups of people to use PyGMT.
Max, so are you talking about with the PyData ecosystem section and examples, or are you saying we need to flesh out more on like philosophy and the design to try to entice two different groups of people?
I think maybe specific to those sections, the integration with PyData ecosystem could be written more towards the perspective of like Python coder, whereas earlier it would be helpful to have the comparison with GMT. So perhaps like similar to how the GMT6 G-cubed paper had two columns where one went over GMT5 syntax and one went over modern mode syntax, we could have a comparison for the same figure of how to accomplish that with GMT and how to accomplish that with PyGMT.
Oh, okay, good idea.
Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left. Thanks everyone for your comments on the paper. I think we should have enough ideas for now. So the final item on the agenda is potential workshops or upcoming features that we would like to see this year. Anyone want to say anything about that?
GMT is going to be doing a Earthscope short course again in June, and this year to accommodate people's schedules a little bit more in time zones, we're going to be focusing on a more distributed and kind of pre-organized format. So we'll be recording lectures and having the students watch those lectures ahead of time, and then have office hours for helping people out. So I was interested in whether there's anyone who would be interested in recording a updated PyGMT kind of lecture for that, and if people would be interested in a short PyGMT office hours similar to what we did for EGU.
As far as recording, are you thinking something like Liam Tony's video from a few years ago?
Yeah, probably, yeah, but shorter, maybe even as short as 15 minutes, though it could be flexible. I think the vast majority of the course will be focused on GMT, like classic command line version, just because this course is a prerequisite for GMT SAR. They're working on a Python wrapper for that, but it's the Earthscope course will still be focused on their program that relies on CLI GMT. So that's why it could be shorter.
Okay. I mean, when would this be for?
We'll start organizing it in earnest in April, and ideally have the lectures posted, I think, by the beginning of June.
Okay, I haven't done it before, but I could potentially record some lectures.
Oh, awesome. I'll so the next step will be like pinging people and solidifying the plan in early April. So I'll tag you on that issue that we're using to organize. I'm really excited that you're interested in helping out with that. Thanks, Will.
I am too. Maybe I'll eat those words in a few months.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Cool. That's you said that was Earthscope, not the geodesy. I was thinking of the geodesy one, but this is something different.
Yeah, so the situation is that UNAVCO, which previously hosted it, merged with I can't remember the name, but maybe it's IRIS, or a different seismology consortium, and so they've become Earthscope. So it's the same people we've organized it with previously, but now it's under Earthscope, which is like a parent organization for UNAVCO.
Oh, okay. Cool. I thought this was like something completely different, and we still have to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good. Thanks, Will, for volunteering too. Okay. Anything else on workshops? I don't know if we want to present it. EGU is definitely too late, but do you want to present something for AGU? I don't know, Yvonne or Jinghui, Tom. If you wanted to organize something like an abstract for some conference.
Yeah, just a comment. So for funding for like those types of things, I'm not at UH, so I don't have as much visibility into this anymore, but my understanding is there is money that could support people to travel and present at a conference like AGU for PyGMT. I will say that the process for getting reimbursement through UH involves a lot of steps and documentation, and I imagine that it's even more complicated for those who are international. So it might be worth asking ahead of time what those steps would be if people are interested in presenting with funding from the GMT grants.
Cool. Yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. I think, yeah, Paul emailed me like last year for reimbursing the SciPy one, and I looked at the paperwork and I was like, for like $50, it didn't seem to be
Yeah,
worth the hassle.
sorry about that. I wish it were easier.
But it was like AGU where it's like a few $100s, then I would.
Yeah, or even traveling if AG is in person.
Yeah. I guess on the travel thing, wasn't there like discussion about some GMT dev summit, or what did they call it?
Yeah, there was something, but nobody wrote.
Also,
You should, or the maintainers and developers should write the email to and the date when they have time to Paul. But as I'm not a maintainer, I have no idea what's going on there. I did not consider this for myself because I'm in the contributor team. I thought this is for the maintainers and code developers. I'm sorry.
yeah, Max.
No worries. I think that we have there is definitely funding for a gathering, and I think it's kind of up to us to all decide as a group, like with Paul's input as the leader of like the grants, to decide like who's most useful to attend. And I think if we decide that it's very useful for maintainers and contributors to attend, then that's definitely like within the scope of possibilities. What we really need is someone to like organize. If we wanted to have an in-person working meeting, we need someone to have time to help coordinate and organize. And I think it would likely be difficult given the like geographic distribution of our team is pretty broad over several continents right now. Another option could be to maybe even have a virtual gathering, though that's like a little bit less fun sometimes. So yeah, that's the summary of the situation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so if anyone has any like strong opinions about what would be good there, I think maybe send me a Slack message and I can like compile them and talk with Paul.
Okay.
Or reach out directly.
Cool. We still have 6 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't know, Tom, Klaus, do you two have anything to?
Yes, maybe it might be possible to have some gathering with some hybrid meeting. So maybe 1 or 2 continents might meet and the others might attend via audio, video, and so on. So hybrid meeting might be quite nice. So I think it's feasible to do that.
Okay, sounds good. And Paul is in Norway now, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I think near Oslo also.
Okay. So maybe something in
So
Europe.
Will and I could at least hang out. We're only like 8 hours apart, maybe more now, 10 driving wise. And
Well,
I don't know,
driving
maybe
so it's a speed.
I don't. Michael is also in Germany, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Klaus Peter, where are you located?
I'm located in Hanover. It's northern Germany.
Good. Maybe,
So I'm
maybe
traveling
hybrid
every day.
could be a good option, or local gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Max, maybe I missed it, but didn't you say you had some things you wanted to add to the agenda?
Oh, I didn't see the workshops, but actually the 2 topics I was interested in are the Earthscope lectures, and then also whether people were interested in any sort of gatherings over the next 6 months or so.
Cool.
Yeah, I know like I think the SciPy call for abstracts is coming up, but I don't know if we have the energy to do one more this year. And there are like there are definitely a few good ones. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought that passed, or did it get extended again?
Oh, did it get? Okay. Maybe it's passed already. I didn't really notice.
This highlights how little I know about the academic publishing world, but do we have is there like a deadline for a specific issue, or is it kind of a rolling deadline as far as submitting paper drafts?
It's a rolling deadline. You
Okay.
can submit to GCubed anytime. Though deadlines do tend to help with getting stuff done, so we could always set one internally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be helpful for the paper to set a target. You know, we can always adjust it, but at least we have something we're working. Because right now I feel like it's this sort of ephemeral. Yeah, we'll get it done at some point. I also say that having never written a paper, so I have no idea what's a realistic timeline.
My opinion is mid-July could be a realistic timeline.
Okay, let's do. So when we say that, what will be done by mid? Working first draft, pretty much.
Let's set some. I think maybe incremental milestones could be helpful. So we could set like a goal of a working first draft by like maybe say that we could, given that everyone has limited time to work on this, maybe by like the end of June, the same as the GMT or scope short course, and then maybe by the end of July having the revisions done, though that is like pretty arbitrary, and with me having done like no involvement in this paper writing so far, so I definitely would welcome the thoughts of people who have been more active in that effort.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. Sorry, after you, Yvonne.
I will see. Maybe I have a bit time over the Easter holidays. I think then it should be possible that I can have a closer look. But at least this month is a bit packed with stuff to finish. I will see. I can work on this example stuff, or I don't know, Wilhelm, what you already think, what you want to do there.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of setting the incremental milestones. I think that, like I said, I don't have experience with this, but at least that gives us something to work for. And if we have to bump it back, we bump it back. It's something out of the world either.
Yeah, I would say definitely by the end of this year. We need to, we should get this done.
I feel like that's too far away though, AJ. Then everyone's like, oh, we'll get to it in the fall.
Yeah. No, definitely July.
Okay.
Let's aim for June, July, June, first draft by June.
Yeah, we should definitely do it until summer, because we will also have the revision process, and this also takes time. Because if it's until it's reviewed, until we get it back, then we have to incorporate all the changes, and we have to send it back. This will also take at least half a year. Submitting is only like the first one step in getting a paper. Then it needs to go through a peer review and all of that.
I guess another question I have is, I know Leo is sort of is the first author as of right now. Is Dong planning kind of be the? I mean, I feel like we need, there is going to be someone who's making the executive decisions. Is that who is sort of in charge of this? I know he's not here to say yes or no.
My first only strong opinion about this is that it's definitely better to set the authorship order before getting to the moment of submission. So I think it would be good to sort that out now. And so with the acknowledgement that it could change, right? If someone pretty much writes the entire paper by themselves, we should, in my opinion, recognize that effort. Also acknowledging that Dong is not here and he's been super active over many years. Maybe we could have this discussion as part of the GitHub issue and try to sort it out. Okay, yeah, I just think it would be good to have someone kind of playing as like the team captain. So we're not all, so that way we have someone who's saying we need to do X, Y, and Z before we can submit, or it's ready, stuff like that. Yeah, and usually that is the person who's the lead author. Yeah.
Okay. Cool, sounds good. We're over the hour. Unless anyone else has anything, I can stop recording.
Are we planning on doing another quarterly release maybe in 3 months from now, or? Because I feel like we definitely let it go by the wayside, probably with the holidays, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, it's time for another release.
Sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that?
I guess kind of setting expectations. I feel like this time we didn't really talk about it, or maybe the last two releases we haven't really talked about it much in advance. Are we still trying to shoot for another release in maybe 3 months or 6 months, or just so that way it's not like a 3-4 weeks beforehand? Is that when where we start seriously talking about the release?
Mm-hmm. I'll leave that to people who have been more involved to comment on.
I think, let me think. Yeah, it would be nice to have another one in the next quarter, like I don't know, June, July, which coincides with the paper.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think there's any harm in setting a date and pushing it back, just so that way we have kind
I
of
would say, yeah, probably like definitely another two. So after V0.9, maybe like another 2 by the end of the year, before AGU in December.
Okay, so maybe like a July and November one.
Maybe like, yeah, like one July, another one October, November.
Okay.
Would be probably realistic. Depends on like how many stuff we get in.
Oh yeah, I mean, fully acknowledging things can change, just so that way, kind of like with the paper, that we have some plan that can always be pushed back if need be.
And also, do you know does anyone know if GMT 6.5 when that is going to get released? Because that might affect things.
It hasn't been scheduled. 6.4 was last year, so I think Paul said he didn't have time in October, November to do so. It's now March. I think it can take another 1 or 2 months. So from what I heard from him.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I'm actually curious about all of your opinions on is that we have discussed is one of the more fragile parts of the release process for GMT is the Mac bundle. So that's like the DMG Mac image where you can install GMT. And my personal opinion is that it is not worth it when we provide options to install through Conda or Homebrew or Mac ports or installing from source. And it's difficult because of the restrictions that Apple puts in place on uploading installers or like verifying installers through their system. So it's frequently like the verification process requires a certificate through the University of Hawaii. Currently, that's only Paul who can access that, which makes it like a pretty manual and unsustainable part. So yeah, I'm curious if any of you have strong opinions about whether that method of installing GMT is really essential to continue supporting.
I mean, it seems like if something like Conda is an available solution, I'm not familiar, I don't really use Macs, but that seems like if there are alternatives, that there's no reason to put extra stress on yourself for something that isn't entirely necessary. Especially when I feel like GMT is already requires someone who's familiar with a computer and using like command lines and stuff like that.
Okay, well, I think we're hoping for a release soon. Realistically, it won't happen before the end of March, but would ideally happen before the June, July release.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I don't have an opinion on the Mac. I haven't used a Mac for a while, but
okay.
I don't know. Does Yvonne, are you using Windows?
Yes, my private laptop is Windows and university is Linux.
Okay, and Tom, I can't remember. Tom, you were using Windows?
I use Mac.
Okay, but you're installing using Conda or Homebrew?
I still use Conda only.
Okay.
Thanks. Yvonne, do you use Conda on Windows?
Yes, I use Conda, yes. I wanted to look how this Mamba thing works, but I had no time to understand it. I only saw that we changed the recommendation that people now use this Mamba package manager. It seems like a re-implementation of Conda, but seems to be significantly faster in solving environments.
That's right. Well, if you have any questions about making the switch, please feel free to reach out.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, cool. Don't want to go too much over, so thanks everyone for joining, and yeah, we'll catch up on GitHub, Slack, wherever.
Nice to see you all.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Same